I wish to state that I firmly believe science is yet in its infancy concerning the cosmology of the Earth. There is so much that is unaccounted for by the world's accepted knowledge of today, and will ever remain so until the land of the Smoky God is known and recognized by our geographers. It is the land from whence came the great logs of cedar. It is the land from whence came the great logs of cedar. It is the land from whence came the great logs of cedar.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where a dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where I told you to run so we'd both be free? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be.
This is in some of y'all church.
That's right.
Thank God for television. This is in some of y'all church. This is in some of y'all homes.
That's right. It's right there.
Fa la 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 la.
This tree that Musa went to, that is blessed on the east side of it and on the west, seems to be some kind of central focal point, I would say, and it yields oil. Well, I find this very strange because this oil, this dun, those who are familiar with my early work, well, all of my work started on cosmology. So this verse now comes into play, the most amazing, the most incredible verse I think in the entire Quran, quite possibly. Allahu nuru samawati wal ard, mathalu nuri kamishkat. This burning bush, which actually is a fiery tree in the Quran, that Musa alayhi salam was blessed to have close communication with Allah at Mount Sinai. This fig and olive tree, keeping that in mind, that gives this tree that gives some kind of oil. This is very interesting because we have an oil in this as well. This is Allah's light. So Allah is light of the heavens and the earth. The likeness of his light is like a niche wherein is a lamp. The lamp in a glass. The glass as though it were a shining star, lit from a blessed tree. Lit from a blessed tree. I can't help but think that this blessed tree, Mubarak, here it is again, Barakna, hawlahu, Zaytun, Zaytun, olive, back to the olive, yeah, Zaytun was Zaytun, this olive tree, neither of the east nor the west. I do think this is cosmological in nature as well. I think it's profound. I think it's spiritual. It's got spiritual implications. It's got cosmological implications. But now I see this also as a very deep ayat, miraculous evidence from Allah, which seems to encompass everything that I'm saying right now about Masjid al-Aqsa, that this is where Allah's light came. This is where Allah's ayat came to Musa, lit from a blessed tree, an olive, this zaytun, it's not a coincidence. Wat-tin was zaytun, wat-turi sinin. The olive, neither of the east nor the west. You remember that verse that I mentioned, 7137? And we blessed them east of it and west of it. All these blessings. Its oil would almost illuminate, though no fire touched it. This oil, this tree, that Musa alayhi salam was blessed to approach and be near and communicate with, produces some kind of fire that illuminates, even though it's not fire. Even though it's not fired up, it's got some kind of. It's almost like as if it is fire, though no fire touched it. Light upon light. Allah guides to His light whom He wills, and Allah strikes similitudes for mankind, and Allah knows all things. My point for today is, back to this, Barakna hawlahu, Musa alayhi salam, Waturi sinin, Wat-tin was zaytun. This oil that is secreted from this tree in Mount Sinai, that is clearly this one, which I did go into from a cosmological perspective, but I now see it from another perspective, being that of this Mount Sinai, or what we're taught is Mount Sinai, ultimately where Musa alayhi salam communicated with Allah. So a tree that gives oil, bidduhn, perhaps olive oil, zaytuha, that's what we had. So we had two different oils being mentioned, duhn and zaytuha. I don't think, even though this is translated as oil, I think we can agree the zayt is in there as well. So this is some kind of olive oil. It seems to be perhaps olive oil, neither of the east nor the west. Keep in mind this tree at the center, neither of the east nor the west. This is a central focal point, perhaps on this earth, or perhaps in some spiritual existence, unseen existence, Allah knows best. Is it at the very center of this earth? Allah knows best, because we've been lied to about the center of the earth as well, but I'm not going to go there.
I think it's just all a trick to make us believe because you can't have a fake alien invasion without space. You can't have a fake alien invasion without the belief in infinite space and aliens and the Big Bang and all that shit's all connected. It's all about the one world government. It's all about the one world government. Nothing quicker. Nothing. There's no other way, really, that we could usher in the New World Order. No better way, no faster way than a fake alien invasion. That's what this is all about. I mean, who knows? Maybe all this Trump, Epstein, Q, maybe all that is a distraction from the real truth. And the real truth is what we're on and who made this.
Who do you think made it?
A god? Some higher intelligence? Some divine intelligence? Because obviously we know the elite, a lot of them, like at the highest levels, they're Satanists.
Yeah, for sure.
And the elite, the beings at the high level, they have all the latest technology. They have the knowledge, all the secret knowledge. They know way more than the peasants, for sure. Peasants don't know shit. They know it. So if they know all this shit and they're doing satanic rituals with children and insane and all this Luciferianism and paganism, all this shit, if they're doing that, then there has to be a god. There has to be. Why else would they be worshiping the fallen angel if he didn't fall from nowhere? It doesn't make any sense. Someone had to create us. We didn't come from nothing. Like the Big Bang, people just believe that shit. People don't even know that a priest invented the Big Bang theory. A priest, not a scientist, a priest. Maybe he was a scientist too, but you know what? He was a priest. I think it all comes from infinite space, aliens, and all that shit. Do you think we live under a dome? I don't know, but it's hard to find the truth being a peasant because I don't have access to, high level technology. I can go up in space. I don't want, people say, why don't you go up in space? Like, dude, are you kidding? Are you kidding? They'll kill me. They'll kill anybody. So we have to figure it out for ourselves. And I do it by a process of elimination, basically. We start with, what is CNN saying? Okay, that's not it. All right, by process of elimination, whatever they're pushing, it's not the truth. So now we're on have a better direction, a better idea, and then you just go by what we know. What do we know for sure? We know that there's this magnetic force in the north that all compasses point to. That we wouldn't be where we're at right now without compasses. Without compasses, you get lost in the ocean. How would you fucking know where you're at? They figured out that no matter where you're at, this compass is going to point to the north. So for a fact, there's this force in the north. Okay, we know that. And then also for a fact, we know that Polaris, the North Star, is right over the North Pole. And it just so happens that it's fixed and it stays over the North Pole. So we know that. And then when you look at time-lapse pictures of space, all the stars are rotating around Polaris.
is the sun? How does it work? What really is it? The reason that I've been thinking about this is, in some of my documentaries you may have seen, I've covered this in earlier parts about how man can only get to 100,000 feet at the most, and that at anywhere near those altitudes, rockets and jets burn out every time. And so nobody can get up that high, and we can't get up near the sun. And nobody apparently knows what really it is. And I've recently put forth and agreed with the idea that it is a parabolic reflection. So this was recently laid out in the large movie that I did, that was the work with Paul Chief's work. So what I've done is, having looked at that now, I can see how this explanation explains how the sun works, but most importantly, it explains the seasons. This is the thing that's been tripping me up about the sun, is how does it create its corkscrew pattern around the pole? Because any type of a three-dimensional object that had to float through space in real time, or through actual space, would be a strange object doing that. It would be strange that it would be an actual object, and that it would be hanging and floating out in space like that for no particular reason. So a lot of things about the sun have puzzled me, and I guess other people, for millions of years, or correction, for thousands of years. So I agree now with this idea that it is a reflection within the parabolic dome of the dome, and I'm going to show you how it is and how it explains the seasons and the corkscrew pattern of the sun. Okay, so what you're looking at now is the pole beam, the beam that comes from the energy, the source that comes from the North Pole. I've talked about this earlier, about that the North Pole, there's a lot more going on there than what they'll let us know, and this is why they blocked off the North Pole and the South Pole. So at the North Pole is a pyramid, or some sort of an object there, and it's the lodestone. It's the magnetic lodestone that is Mount Meru at the center of our Earth, and it is putting out a light source, or a power source, that's invisible through, and this is what all the symbology of the pyramid is in the pole, in the center pole, and it's putting out all this energy straight up, and it may not be visible light to us when it's coming out of that beam. So as it goes up and hits on a reflector, like a disco ball is a great example of it, as it hits on that reflector and is shot parabolically at the edge of the dome, and it sticks to the dome, because it's such a bright, powerful source. To us, it appears to be a hot, real object, when really it's just the focused beam of light on the dome itself. So what you're looking at when you're looking at the sun is not a three-dimensional floating object. It is just light bouncing off the dome and being perfectly collected on the dome.
Now let's see the effect of a simple reflecting surface used to control light. The rays leave their source, strike the reflector, and bounce back on themselves in the same path. Then if we place a lens like this in the path of the light, the rays are bent inward. Now let's try another type of lens, similar to the lens used in automobile headlights. Instead of bringing the rays together at a point, this lens bends them so they go out in parallel lines.
And so this is the reason that it explains the seasons perfectly. It would have to be an up-down pattern on the dome to create the corkscrew effect that we see between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer, between winter and summer. So what I'm going to show you now is how that works, as the beam that you see here is being beamed at the dome, and it's turning along the dome. You only have to adjust the height slightly on that beam to make the sun take a higher or lower position in the sky. And so this is the reason that it explains the seasons perfectly. You know, it would have to be an up-down pattern on the dome to create the corkscrew effect that we see between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer, between winter and summer. So what I'm going to show you now is how that works. As the beam that you see here is being beamed at the dome, and it's turning along the dome, you only have to adjust the height slightly on that beam to make the sun take a higher or lower position in the sky, and therefore, to us, a more northern or more southern position. And so throughout the year it only has to fluctuate the tiniest bit, that beam, to make it arc all the way around the bowl, the inside of the bowl, much more easily.
Achtung, hier Polarexpedition 6, verstehen Sie mich? Kommen. Achtung, hier Polarexpedition 6, verstehen Sie mich? Kommen. Hier Polarexpedition 6, können Sie mich verstehen? Wie ist Ihre Position? 4 Stunden.
I coined the term paradigm blindness.
I love it.
Because, you know, I don't think that most of the academics are out there trying to mislead people at all. I think that they believe in what they're sharing, and you know, it doesn't matter what subject we're talking about. I'm talking about all the ologies when I talk about this. Is that, you know, there's an expression they say, if they can get you asking the wrong questions, it doesn't matter what your answers are. So if the core foundational ideas that are your ology is built upon are faulty, then you know you're not gonna recognize that, because you've been raised in that paradigm. We've all been raised in paradigms, and so when something comes in that challenges that, we have knee-jerk reactions to it, and we push it away because we're blinded by that paradigm, because we don't understand that maybe it's completely wrong, and there's a whole other way to look at things. And so this is true of, you know, the expertitis, the inflammation that of people who think they're experts in subjects, and all of a sudden they close themselves off. And then there's a compartmentalization in academia as well as in politics, government, military-industrial complex, and this compartmentalization, it doesn't lead to a cross-pollination of ideas in seemingly unrelated topics, right? Everyone's in their little narrow category, and they say that being an expert means knowing more and more about less and less until you know absolutely everything about nothing.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Looking into the evidence that's out there for the existence of these great avatar-sized trees, you know, trees that were miles wide at the stump and covered the heavens with their branches and the wildlife that dwelled within. There are trees around the world that have these inexplicable waterfalls coming out from within. So obviously there are channels in the tree that are large enough to support the movements of this kind of water, or this quantity of water. And so I was just hypothesizing, well, what would that look like if it was a tree that was miles wide at the base?
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where a dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where I told you to run so we'd both be free? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where a necklace of hope side by side with me? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where I told you to run so we'd both be free? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, they say we murdered 3? Strange things that happened here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree? Death and call out for his love to flee. Strange things that happened here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Ever wondered how wind and rain create the tabletop mesas we see all around the world? Or how the same wind and rain don't seem to flatten other hills and mountains? And why are they always so flat on top? The ancient world once may have been silica-based, unlike the carbon-based world that we know. In this ancient age, silica pillars once grew up out of the ground and reached above the clouds and far into the heavens. The other silica-based life forms, the Titans, or the gods, terraformed our realm and cut these ancient giant trees down. These Titans became known as the Fellers, those who fell the giant trees. The stumps of the titanic silica pillars having been left behind, surviving to this day. Monuments to a forgotten past, erased history, and ancient oblivion. The stumps of the silica pillars, like all the rest of the world at that time, petrified and turned into rock. Today we call them mesas, tabletops, and plateaus. The fellers of the rock, or RockerFellers, were also known as the fallen ones, or those who caused to fall. They, along with the silica pillars, were erased from our history as the great libraries of the world were looted and destroyed. But our memories are too strong, and the stories have survived the test of time. They come to us in myths and legends, fairy tales and fiction. Jack and the Beanstalk, Paul Bunyan, the Tower of Babel, and many, many more reveal to us the secrets that we have kept from ourselves. You see, we've left ourselves clues, little hints to a forgotten past, breadcrumbs to help us remember our ancient oblivion.
Ancient Greek mythology referred to Mount Olympus, the home of the gods. The ancient Germans told of Irminsul, a universal column which sustains everything. The Norse Edda spoke of Asgard, the burg of the gods, rising in the center of Midgard, the circular earth. Ptolemy recounted a legend involving magnetic islands which exerted such strong attraction that ships with metal nails were held in place and unable to leave. In the Arabic legend, 1001 Nights, a magnetic mountain pulls all the nails right out of their ship, causing it to fall apart and sink. The second tallest mountain in Tanzania is even named Mount Meru, after its primordial partner at the pole. Richard Thompson wrote, "In many traditions, the world mountain is identified symbolically with some local mountain. This is illustrated by Mount Olympus of the Greeks, Mount Alborz of the Iranians, and Mount Kunlun of the Chinese. In Near Eastern tradition, the world mountain is the small hill in Jerusalem known as Mount Zion. Thus, the circular continent centered on Jerusalem in medieval maps also possessed a symbolic world mountain." John Phillips wrote, "Jerusalem was Paul's lodestone. The ancient mariners who set sail in their little cockle-shell boats tended to hug the coastline, not daring to get too far from land. Aids to navigation were few, and their vessels were at the mercy of wind and wave. The slightest sign of a storm would send them scurrying for refuge. Moreover, the dreams of those old-time venturers were haunted by the thoughts of the fabled lodestone mountain. They believed it had the power to draw their vessels to shipwreck on its shores against all the pull of tide and wind." Isaiah wrote about a mountain, set above all other mountains, in the far recesses of the north, where the gods meet, called Mount Zion in Jerusalem. Genesis, Ezekiel, and Enoch all mention a paradisical Eden, the mountain of God, and source of 4 main rivers. Genesis 2:10-14 reads, "And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and became into 4 heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium, and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon, the same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the 4th river is Euphrates." Muhammad also spoke of 4 rivers and a divine tree. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4 branches of the celestial Ganges flow out from Brahmapuri on top of Mount Sumeru. In ancient Canaan, Gur-Ili, the mountain of El, was the dwelling of El, the creator, and a place of assembly for the demigods. In one Phoenician ivory carving from around 1000 BC, a deity is shown dressed to represent a mountain with 4 streams coming out from the mountain god-man at right angles. Similarly, in an ancient Akkadian hymn to the goddess Ishtar, she is addressed as the queen of the mountain of the world and queen of the land of the 4 rivers of Erech. And she says, "I am lord of the steep mountains which tremble whilst their summits reach to the firmament." In the Christian apocryphal Book of Enoch, Enoch is taken by angels on a tour of the 7 heavens, and while in the 3rd heaven shown magnificent trees producing wonderful fruits with adjacent springs pumping honey, milk, oil, and wine to 4 directional rivers flowing down into paradisical Eden, an abode specially prepared only for the pious and selfless. Similarly, in the Hindu cosmology, 4 trees in Alavarta Varsa stand on great mountains producing rivers of nectar and honey, like fountains of youth, providing health and vitality to all who drink of them, while the central tallest jambu tree rises to incredible heights and seems to cover all the heavens. Richard Thompson wrote, "In the Bhagavata Purana, Mount Sumeru is surrounded by 4 great mountains, surmounted by 4 gigantic trees. These include the Jambu tree, after which Jambudweep is named. 4 huge lakes of milk, honey, sugarcane juice, and pure water are located between the 4 mountains, and these lakes confer mystic powers on the celestial beings who bathe in them. There are also 4 celestial gardens near these lakes. From the foot of each of the 4 trees, there flows a river that either emerges from the tree itself or from the fruits of the tree. These rivers of honey and different kinds of juice flow throughout the region of Vilavarcha surrounding Mount Sumeru, and they confer freedom from fatigue, disease, and old age on the inhabitants of that region. The Yaku people of northeastern Siberia have their own strikingly similar ancient myth where a world tree of immeasurable age exists at the navel of the earth, just like the Hindu Jambu tree is born of the umbilical knot of Brahma. The Yaku world tree reaches into the high heavens with cones 9 fathoms long and sap which imparts youthfulness on all who consume it. Near the Yaku tree also lies a lake of sweet milk, which is where the popular modern Japanese milk company Yaku doubtless gets its inspiration. Richard Thompson wrote, "In different traditions, the upper and lower worlds may be divided into several levels, often 7 or 9. In the center of the Earth disk there is a world mountain or world pillar that links Middle Earth to the lower and upper worlds. The world mountain represents the polar axis, and the dwellings of great demigods are located on its summit. The world mountain may be surrounded by other mountains that define the cardinal directions, and these directions may be associated with certain colors. 4 sacred rivers may also flow from the world mountain in the 4 cardinal directions. There is a world tree that is often situated on the world mountain, or 4 world trees may be located on the neighboring directional mountains. The world tree extends from the earth to the heavens, and it is nearly immortal. It is the source of rivers of nectar or pure water that give health and longevity to those who drink them. The tree stands in an earthly paradise where there are celestial gardens and rivers of various substances such as milk, oil, and honey. The tree or world pillar is often associated with a great eagle-like bird that is the enemy of great serpents dwelling in the lower world." In ancient Iranian thought, a mountain called Hera Barazati, or Alborj, stands at the center of the earth, a fixed point around which the sun, moon, and stars revolve. At its summit lies the dwelling place of Ormuzd, the Lord of Light, complete with a giant miraculous tree, an Edenic garden of Ahura Mazda, and the celestial fountain Ardusur, which is the mother of all earthly water and flows down towards 4 cardinal points into 4 large streams. The bridge Chinavad reaches from the peak of Alborj to the solid vault of heaven, or Gorodman, the home of the pious and blessed, whilst underneath lies the great gulf of Dozak, the abysmal abode of the Lord of Darkness, Ahriman. The earliest cosmogony recorded by the Japanese in their most ancient book, the Kojiki, once again mirrors this recurring mythology. In the beginning, Izanagi and Izanani, the great god and goddess, standing in heaven, drove a celestial spear into the endless sea and twisted it around until an island rose from the water. They then descended from heaven to earth and built a palace around the huge spear, using it as the central pillar. This spear became the central axis of the world, and their palace the birthplace of the human race. Ancient South American traditions also believed the human race was birthed in the farthest north, upon the highest of mountains, surrounded by perpetual clouds, fountainhead of the world's waters, and home of god Tlaloc, residing on their sacred paradise mountains, Tlapalan. The first man, Quetzalcoatl, was said to have drank the water of immortality from Tlaloc's mountain, and ruled as king throughout the Golden Age in Mexico. The many Incan, Mayan, Aztec, and other step pyramids and temples aligned to cardinal directions and devoted to the gods are representative of this world mountain. Interestingly enough, many modern Mexican myths now represent the mountain as crooked or partially turned over. Similarly, in the ancient Chinese Taoist tradition, a myth over 4,000 years old refers to Shang-Te, the highest of all gods, who lives in Si-Wei, described as a celestial space above the North Pole. Shang-Te's abode is said to exist directly over the peak of Mount Kunlun, which again places the highest god at Polaris. As with the other cosmologies, Mount Kunlun is a primeval paradise, abode of the gods, with a world tree in the middle and a fountain of immortality from which 4 rivers flow outwards to the 4 corners of the earth. Dr. William Warren wrote, "Sparkling fountains and purling streams contain the far-famed ambrosia. One may there rest on flowery carpeted swards, listening to the melodious warbling of birds, or feasting upon the delicious fruits, at once fragrant and luscious, which hang from the branches of the luxuriant groves. Whatever there is beautiful in landscape or grand in nature may also be found there in the highest state of perfection. All is charming, all enchanting, and whilst nature smiles, the company of genii delights the ravished visitor. Where now is the Paradise Mountain located? At the North Pole. Immediately over the central peak of Kunlun appears the polar star, which is Shang-Te's heavenly abode. In the central place, the polar star of heaven, the one bright one, the great monad, always dwells. In accordance with this conception, the emperor and his assistants, when officiating before the altar of heaven, always face the north. The pole star itself is a prominent object of worship. Both the ancient Orientals and Greeks turned to face north before commencing prayer. Homer states that when addressing the gods of Mount Olympus, they would stretch their arms toward the northern sky, and Plato also confirms that this holy habitation of Zeus was placed in the center of the world. And in the Scandinavian Eddas, both Asgard and Nidavellir are represented as the navel or center of the world. For them, atop the Yggdrasil tree at Earth's center was the heavenly Asgard, home of the gods. Today we still pay respect to this primitive tradition at Christmas when we top our symbolic world trees with a bright yellow pole star. Dr. William Warren wrote, "We have already seen that the term navel was anciently used in many languages for center, and that the pole or central point of the revolving constellations was the navel of heaven. But as to the celestial pole, there corresponds a terrestrial one. So it is only natural that to the term the navel of heaven, there should be the corresponding expression the navel of the earth. Beginning with Christian traditions, let us make a pilgrimage to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre at Jerusalem. There, in the portion belonging to the Greek Christians, we shall discover a round pillar, some 2 feet high, projecting from the marble pavement but supporting nothing. If we inquire as to its purpose, we shall be informed that it is designed to mark the exact center or navel of the earth. Early pilgrims and chroniclers refer to this curious monument, but its antiquity no one knows." Ancient Norse legend states that a gigantic violent maelstrom or whirlpool, known as Vergelmer, or the World's Well, surrounds the polar mountain, and via 4 6-hour daily cycles of pushing and pulling through subterranean channels cause the rising and falling of tides on Earth. Adam of Bremen recounts the Frisian explorers' deadly encounter with this abysmal chasm as such. Of a sudden they fell into that numbing ocean's dark mist which could hardly be penetrated with the eyes, and behold, the current of the fluctuating ocean whirled back to its mysterious fountainhead, and with most furious impetuosity drew the unhappy sailors, who in their despair now thought only of death, on to chaos. This, they say, is the abysmal chasm, that deep in which report has it that all the backflow of the sea, which appears to decrease, is absorbed and in turn re-vomited, as the mounting fluctuation is usually described. As the partners were imploring the mercy of God to receive their souls, the backward thrust of the sea carried away some of their ships, but its forward ejection threw the rest far behind the others. Freed thus by the timely help of God from the instant peril they had had before their eyes, they seconded the flood by rowing with all their might. Besides the Norse legends of Virgulmer, historical records of this world well can be found as early as the 8th century AD, when Paulus Diaconus, or Paul the Deacon, Benedictine monk, scribe, and historian of the Lombards, wrote in his Historia Langobardorum that, not far from the shore, where the ocean extends without bounds, is that very deep abyss of waters which we commonly call the ocean's navel. It is said twice a day to suck the waves into itself and to spew them out again, as is proved to happen all along these coasts, where the waves rush in and go back again with fearful rapidity. By the whirlpool of which we have spoken, it is asserted that ships are often drawn in with such rapidity that they seem to resemble the flight of arrows through the air, and sometimes they are lost in the gulf with a very frightful destruction. Often, just as they are about to go under, they are brought back again by a sudden shock of the waves, and they are sent out again thence with the same rapidity with which they were drawn in.
The North Pole is the inherent geographical focal point of all creation. It is the perfect center of the bullseye, the magnetic attractor of all the world's compasses, the originator of all the world's tides, and home to the only motionless star in the heavens around which all the other stars, the sun and the moon, revolve. In ancient times, it was also claimed to be home to the tallest mountain and the tallest people on earth. As recently as the 19th century, explorers like Olaf Jansen have continued telling so-called tall tales of meetings with races of giant human beings who live at the pole. In his book, The Smoky God, Olaf Jansen claimed to have journeyed to the North Pole with his father in 1829, where they met and mingled 2 years with a race of 12-foot-tall giants who lived up to 800 years, spoke a language similar to Sanskrit, and inhabited a paradisical capital city named Eden. This particular story is most likely a piece of fiction, but echoes a long-standing tradition of similar claims that the North Pole is or was once home to a paradisical Edenic abode inhabited by races of gigantic and or miniature human beings. In ancient Greek and Roman texts from Pindar, Herodotus, Hesiod, and Homer, to Virgil and Cicero, it was universally claimed that the North Pole was home to a race of giants called the Hyperboreans, who lived for over 1,000 years and enjoyed lives of perfect happiness. Hyperborea was allegedly bathed in 24-hour sunlight, with the sun only ever rising or setting once every year. Pliny the Elder wrote in his Natural History Book 4 that the farthest of all, which are known and spoke of, is Thule, in which there be no nights at all, as we have declared, about midsummer, namely when the sun passes through the sign Cancer, and contrariwise, no days in midwinter, and each of these times, they suppose, do last 6 months, all day or all night. For observers standing at the pole, the heavens would appear to have been created just for them. Their unique perspective places Polaris, the only motionless star in the sky, perfectly situated directly above them, with all the other visible stars rotating horizontal left-to-right paths 360 degrees around, all at an apparent equal distance away. The sun and moon also rotate horizontally around the polar observer, with the sun rising and setting only once per year, creating 6-month days and 6-month nights.
Every day in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, thousands of Muslims gather and walk westward circles around a tall black stone cube called the Kaabah. This Kaabah stone lies at the very center of Islam's most important mosque, the Great Mosque of Mecca, and is the most sacred site in Islam, said to be the Bat Allah, House of God, where all Muslims must turn to face before daily prayers. The most common epithet often used for Kaabah translates to the center of the earth, and in the 9th century, Islamic scholar Al-Kasai argued that the true Kaabah was actually located directly beneath the North Pole star. This would mean the true Kaabah is actually Mount Meru, and not the large black stone worshipped in Saudi Arabia. This would mean that every day thousands of Muslims walk westward circles around Kaabah, just like every night thousands of stars rotate westward circles around Mount Meru. This would mean that just like the ancient Chinese and Greeks would face north before commencing prayer, that Muslims too are meant to be facing the North Pole, rather than Saudi Arabia. Many legends of Mount Meru claim it to be a mountain composed of black magnetite stone, Mercator's Rupis nigra, surrounded by 4 directional rivers and islands, and this is again echoed symbolically by the black stone 4-sided cube at Mecca. Why does this black cube in Mecca so perfectly mirror the ancient myths of Mount Meru? Could this man-made construction in Saudi Arabia be usurping the placement of the true house of God at the North Pole? It is, of course, impossible for these pillars, temples, and churches to all be the centers of the world, which only further proves the point that none of them are authentic, and they are each merely symbolic representations. The one and only true center point of all creation, the navel of both the heavens and earth, is undeniably the North Pole. But by giving us all these symbolic facsimiles and by turning Earth into a gigantic tilting sphere spun around the sun, the North Pole has effectively been nullified in the minds of the masses as being the true, natural, sacred center of the universe. Ritual reverential circumambulation, like that of the Muslims around Kaabah, is a practice found in many cultures throughout history. Hindus in India plant sacred tulasi shrubs in their courtyards, with ample space around for reverential circumambulation, known as domestic pradakshina. They repeat this perambulation 108 times while reciting the 108 names of Vishnu, keeping their right shoulder turned towards the plant, mimicking the revolution of the celestial bodies around Polaris. Similarly, at Vishnu temples, devotees walk circles around the outside, either 7 or 108 times, always keeping their right shoulder towards it. Buddhists in Sri Lanka circumambulate their Dagoba shrines the same way. The sacred Adi Granth, the Sikh Bible, is kept at the Golden Temple of Amritsar, where devotees perform ritual reverential circumambulation around the sanctuary that houses the book 3, 5, or 7 times. Christian bishops, when consecrating a church, make 3 circuits around the building, sprinkling holy water, and priests perambulate the altar, incensing it while reciting a prayer, which includes mention of this circular worship, Circumdato alter dum domine. Several initiation rituals of the Freemasons include circumambulation around central placed shrines. The stringing of lights around a Christmas tree, topped with a star, is another example of this tradition, mimicking the luminaries' revolution around Polaris, and the reason a godlike figure, Santa Claus, resides at the North Pole. The pillar is Polaris at the pole, the dancers represent the fixed and wandering stars, while the spiraling streamers show the paths of the sun and moon over and around the earth. During this summer celebration, like the ever-narrowing spiraling streamers, the sun has actually just narrowed its spiral path from its greatest southern extent at the Tropic of Capricorn during December winter solstice, and fast approaches its arrival at the northern Tropic of Cancer during the upcoming summer solstice. In fact, originally and still today in many countries, the Maypole dance is not performed in May at all, but rather on June 21st, the very day the sun reaches its northernmost peak. The Sufi Muslim sect known as the Mevlevi order, or the whirling dervishes, have also preserved a form of polar worship with their circular dance, which is said to represent the harmonious movement of the universe. The dervishes wear a conical cap directed to the zenith, point their right hand to heaven and their left to earth, and then spin circles in place, causing their robes to flare out, making another conical circle around them, all while internally incessantly intoning the name of God, Allah. The founder of the Mevlevi himself wrote that, "He who is above all combination, all distinction, is a tree without branches or trunk or roots to which the mind can be attached." This references a concept found all over the ancient world regarding a macrocosmic and microcosmic world tree, what the Norse called Yggdrasil, the Germans called Irminsul, the Hindu Jambutweep, the Taoist paradisical tongue tree, the Buddhist Bodhi tree of wisdom, the giant tree of the Finnish Kalevala, the Celtic golden apple tree of Avalon, the Egyptian tree of life, and the tree at the center of the biblical Garden of Eden. Dr. William Warren wrote, "In the center of the Garden of Eden, according to Genesis 3, there was a tree exceptional in position, in character, and in its relations to men. Its fruit was good for food, it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired. At first sight it would not perhaps appear how a study of this tree and the different mythologies of the ancient world could assist us in locating primitive paradise. In the discussions of such sites, as have usually been proposed, it could not. But if the Garden of Eden was precisely at the North Pole, it is plain that a goodly tree standing in the center of that garden would have had a visible and obvious cosmical significance which could by no possibility belong to any other. Its fair stem shooting up as arrow-straight as the body of one of the giant trees of California, far overtopping, it may be, even such gigantic growths as these, would to anyone beneath have seemed the living pillar of the very heavens. Around it would have turned the stars of God, as if in homage, though its topmost branches the human worshipper would have looked up to that unmoving center point where stood the changeless throne of the Creator. How conceivable that that Creator should have reserved for sacred uses this one natural altar height of the earth, and that by special command he should have guarded its one particular adornment from desecration. If anywhere in the temple of nature there was to be an altar, it could only be here. That it was here finds a fresh and unexpected confirmation in the singular agreement of many ancient religions and mythologies in associating their paradise tree with the axis of the world, or otherwise, with equal unmistakableness, locating it at the Arctic pole of the earth. The Norse Yggdrasil tree exists at the very center of their world and cosmology, with its roots descending into hell, its mid-branches overarching the earth, and its top reaching to heaven. Likewise, the medieval legend of Seth's visit to the Garden of Eden sees a central tree of life with its crown in heavens and roots in hell, distilling a life-saving oil of mercy obtained for his dying father. However named, all waters are simply portions of the same heaven-descending stream. The other innumerable waters and rivers, springs and channels are one in origin with those, so in various districts and various places they call them by various names. Even plant sap and blood and milk are parts of the one cosmic current. All these, through growth or the body which is formed, mingle again with the rivers, for the body which is formed and the growth are both one. Everything of a liquid nature, therefore, in the whole world is conceived of as proceeding from one source high in the North Polar sky. Into such a marvelously complete cosmical circulatory water system did the Irenic imagination develop the primitive headstream of Eden. But never, even in the most extravagant mythological adornments of the idea, was it for a moment forgotten that the original undivided stream originates in the North Polar sky, and that its division into earthly streams and rivers is on the holy mount which stands in the center. This concept of holy water exists in nearly all of the world's religions, from Christianity, Islam, and Sikhism to Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism. The Christian cross itself is the same shape as the 4 rivers at the North Pole, and before entering church, the parishioner dips their fingers in holy water and touches 4 points on their bodies. To bless the water, the priest first makes the sign of the cross over the basin, touches the surface with the palm of his hand, and says, "I bless thee, creature of water, by the God that made thee issue from the earthly paradise in 4 rivers." Christian baptism also takes place ex aqua et spirito sancto, or of water and of the Holy Spirit, where the Holy Spirit is transported into the born-again Christian through the medium of water. In Buddhism, monks similarly bless vessels of holy water, then use special wooden fans to sprinkle the water over temple-goers. In Islam, followers drink or wash in water from their sacred Zamzam well in Mecca. How could these detailed parallel mythologies and concepts all rise and flourish independently of one another thousands of years ago? What could be the origin and impetus of these ideas of world trees, celestial rivers, and polar mountains?
if not their literal existence.
You see, the winter solstice a couple of days later was the shortest day of the year, and the pagans had something called Saturnalia. And it was a time of lawlessness because all the laws were suspended. And people, a bunch of singers actually wandered the streets naked singing. And then they had orgies, sexual orgies. It was a mass thing. Well, when the Catholic Church came along in Italy, the Romans and others didn't want to give up their holidays, so they said, okay, we'll Christianize it. And so they said, okay, we'll say the birth of Jesus was the 25th of December. So all this business about mistletoe, pagan. Christmas trees, pagan. Giving out gifts, pagan. Every bit of it is pagan. Every single bit of it is pagan. We've Christianized it all. But the truth is, they're all pagan.
I want this to be good for if I got any Christmas devils in here.
That's right.
If I got any preachers in here that got little mangers and got Christmas plays in your church. Yeah. Your church done played too long. The Bible ain't never said Jesus was born December 25th, so stop lying, Mr. Preacher.
That's right.
Get them decorations off your door. Yeah. Get that Christmas tree out your house, you liar.
Amen.
Stop lying to your children. You know it ain't no 400-pound man coming down your chimney. Children, there is no Santa Claus. Your mama or your daddy bought them presents.
Right.
There is no Santa Claus. Stop lying. This is heathenism.
Heathenism.
This is paganism.
That's right.
This ain't got nothing to do with God.
That's right.
You got Santa. If you listen at what they say about Santa, they put him in competition with God.
Yes, they do.
Because according to the Bible, God knows what you're thinking.
That's right.
It is God that knows whether you've been bad or good.
Amen.
And it is God that's everywhere.
Yeah.
God didn't make reindeer to fly.
No.
Santa is everywhere. Yeah. In one night, he's everywhere. Yeah, you come out, you love your children. If you love your children, tell them the truth. Yeah. Why would you take them down to a mall to sit on the lap of a pervert?
That's right.
That's right. You got your daughter standing between the legs of a man you don't even know?
Yeah.
You got your son sitting on the lap of some old pervert?
That's right.
What's the matter with you?
That's right.
You're supposed to be a protector for your children.
Go ahead.
Focusing on human, ideological differences leads to animosity and war, while focusing on commonalities leads to knowledge and wisdom. One of the most common themes found within all traditions across the world is the idea that human beings are born with an internal divinity which has the potential for transmutation into a higher life form, a dormant soul seed ready to be awakened by a disciplined and mindful human. Sufism teaches that through a deep love for the divine, one can merge completely with it. Heresy is defined as a deviation from original teachings, and the original teachings did not include original sin or salvation through a hierarchic system of man. And with the Protestant Reformation of 1517 AD came the doctrine that human nature is totally depraved, and that salvation comes only through faith, not through action. If these changes in church doctrine were not meant to make mankind more fallen and submissive, then what on earth were they meant for? The most effective way of dumbing down the population has been convincing them that they are a depraved animal and must submit to the authority of man. No matter, the divine spark is within you, and only you can choose to ignore it, or not. Greg Reese reporting.
And this is just getting back to the idea someone said in a stream that I saw yesterday, like, why couldn't some of these mountains just be gigantic crystals that formed, when the Earth was young? And I don't see any reason why that's not also possible. This is fascinating to me. I think Roger Spur from Mud Fossil University theorized that selenite, which is what this appears to be, but maybe it's just quartz, I don't know, that this is actually parts of the tendons of titans. And, perhaps, I don't know. But there's probably some mountains out there that were just crystalline also.